Have you ever stared at the world around you, maybe after a personal setback or, seeing some kind of injustice, and found yourself asking that really old, really unsettling question? Why do bad things happen to good people?
Oh, absolutely.
It's a query that doesn't just flicker across our minds sometimes. It feels like it echoes through history, doesn't it? Touching every heart, every generation. It forces us to grapple with our deepest sense of fairness and purpose. It just seems universal.
It really is. And it's not just some philosophical puzzle to bat around. It's a raw, uh, very human lament.
Yeah.
It makes us confront our core understanding of justice, of meaning, maybe even the very fabric of existence itself.
Yeah.
We just instinctively look for a reason,
Uh-huh.
a pattern, some sense of order when we see suffering, especially when it seems completely undeserved.
And today, we're not just going to scratch the surface of that question. We're embarking on a deep dive, a real journey into precisely that profound query, but through the lens of the timeless wisdom found in one of humanity's most revered spiritual texts, the Bhagavad Gita. Now, this isn't just some dusty old scripture, though its history is obviously incredibly deep. It is, at its heart, this intense, very personal, profound conversation that actually unfolds on a battlefield. And it addresses the very nature of suffering, purpose, and ultimately, maybe liberation.
That's right. The Gita, often called the Song of God, it's really seen as a masterpiece of Vedic knowledge. It's presented as being directly spoken by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna himself.
Right.
And it's considered a perfect theistic science, not just, a collection of beliefs, but a systematic, logical framework for understanding the divine, the soul, the universe. It presents wisdom found nowhere else, really.
Mm-hmm.
And it's meant to be understood, ideally, without layering on too many personal interpretations. Just as Arjuna, the original listener, received it directly from the Lord. It's considered perfect because its principles are seen as eternal, universally applicable.
Mm-hmm.
And a science because it outlines a kind of verifiable process for spiritual realization.
Okay, so our mission today then is to try and unravel some of the complexities of this philosophical treasure. I'm really keen to discover the crucial insights it offers that might give us, a fresh perspective on suffering. Maybe not seeing it just as arbitrary punishment, but perhaps as an integral part of some larger cosmic order, maybe even a path towards ultimate understanding. I'm hoping we'll uncover how even a deep sense of compassion, if it's maybe misunderstood or misdirected, could actually cause distress,
Right. That's a key point.
and how true wisdom might lead to a profound, kind of unshakable peace.
And the narrative structure of the Gita is just so key to its power. Being set amidst this epic war, it uses the crucible of conflict, really, to explore these universal themes. It gives us this unique, compelling framework for understanding how duty, destiny, and divine will all interact. It's philosophy, but wrapped in a story, which makes it incredibly relatable.
Definitely. All right, so let's set the scene properly. You need to imagine this ancient plain, vast, probably dusty, named Kurukshetra. It's known as a Dharmaksetra, which, you explained, means something like a field of duty or a sacred ground where religious rituals were usually performed. But on this day, it's poised for an epic, brutal war, not a ritual.
A stark contrast.
Yeah, the air is thick with tension. You can almost feel the anticipation of conflict. On one side, you've got the formidable Pandava army, led by the noble, very righteous warrior Prince Arjuna.
A renowned hero.
Exactly. And on the other side, arrayed for battle. Well, it's his own kinsmen, his teachers, his friends. It's right here amidst the thunder of war drums and the blare of conches as these armies stand ready to clash that Arjuna, this virtuous, compassionate man, faces a crisis of conscience so profound that it basically ignites this whole timeless discussion.
Okay, let's really lean into this opening scene because, like you said, it's not just a backdrop. It's the very foundation for everything else.
Yeah.
So Arjuna, this warrior of immense renown, celebrated for his courage, his skill.
Top archer of his time. Right. He finds himself on this sacred battlefield, Kurukshetra. He's there to fight. He's fully prepared. He's got his legendary bow, the Gandiva, in hand. But then as he looks across at the opposing army, something just breaks inside him. It's not some faceless enemy he's seeing. It's a sea of familiar faces.
And this is exactly where the story hooks directly into our question.
Yeah.
Why do good people suffer?
Yeah.
Arjuna isn't afraid of a fight. He's proven his bravery countless times before. What completely paralyzes him is the devastating realization that he has to fight and potentially kill fathers, grandfathers, teachers, maternal uncles, brothers, sons, grandsons, friends, fathers-in-law, and well-wishers.
Wow.
This isn't just a battle. It's like a family reunion gone horribly, violently wrong. His entire support system, his mentors, his beloved relative, they're all lined up against him, and the weight of that recognition is just crushing.
You can almost feel his anguish. The text itself paints this vivid, absolute heartbreaking picture of his immediate physical and emotional breakdown. It describes how his limbs just weaken.
The limp, yeah.
His face crumples with despair. His whole body starts trembling uncontrollably, and his hair bristles, stands on end with shock. His eyes, it says, are brimming with tears, and he is overwhelmed by compassion and very sorrowful. This isn't just fear, right, or cowardice. It's a profound ethical dilemma, a moral paralysis born out of deep care.
Absolutely. And he voices his suffering, his conviction, with this heart-wrenching clarity. He says something like, "I do not see how any good can come from killing my own kinsmen in this battle, nor can I, my dear Krishna, desire any subsequent victory, kingdom, or happiness."
He sees no good outcome.
None. He's genuinely consumed by the fear of incurring sin if he slays his own family. He foresees only sorrow, even if he wins. It's such a powerful moment of moral conflict, isn't it? It really challenges our easy assumptions about what it means to be a quote-unquote good person in a complex situation.
It really does. And it's crucial, I think, to contrast Arjuna's distress with that of Duryodhana, who's leading the other side, the Kauravas, because that contrast highlights the very core of our question.
Yes, that's a very important distinction.
Duryodhana was also distressed, but apparently over the prospect of losing the war and his ill-gotten gains. His concern was purely selfish, fearing the loss of this kingdom he'd basically stolen, his power.
Right. Pure self-interest.
But Arjuna's distress, it was born from this deep, innate compassion for his loved ones and a profound fear of the suffering he would inflict and also endure. He isn't afraid of fighting itself, like we said.
Yeah.
His fear is about the devastating consequences for everyone he cares about and for his own conscience.
That difference is absolutely foundational. It elevates Arjuna's suffering from just, battlefield nerves to a true crisis of conscience for a fundamentally good man. And this is the precise moment he turns to Krishna. Krishna is acting as his charioteer, he's his intimate friend, but also, as the Gita reveals, he's the Supreme Lord himself.
Right.
And Arjuna addresses Krishna as Madhusudana. Now, that name literally means the killer of the demon Madhu, by using that specific name.
He's sending a message.
Exactly. Arjuna is implicitly asking Krishna to kill the demon of misunderstanding that has completely overtaken his own mind, to destroy the ignorance that's causing his distress. He also calls him Lokarakshaka, the controller of everything, which expresses his profound faith that Krishna, as the ultimate orchestrator of the universe, must hold the answer to his grief and confusion.
Wow, so that choice of names isn't just casual. It's a deep plea for spiritual insight. He's looking for more than just, tips on how to fight better. He's seeking a fundamental understanding to resolve this inner torment.
Precisely.
So this intense personal suffering of a truly virtuous man, Arjuna, becomes the launchpad, the profound starting point for all of Krishna's teachings. It's this deep, very relatable human predicament that prompts this whole deep dive into the nature of existence itself. It gives us a framework to understand why even good people like Arjuna can experience such overwhelming suffering. And it all kicks off with Krishna's initial response, which is surprisingly direct, maybe even sounds a little harsh at first.
Krishna's response to Arjuna's deep lamentation is indeed quite direct, almost an immediate rebuke, which can feel jarring when you first read it. He sees Arjuna's sorrow as material compassion.
Material compassion, what does that mean exactly?
It means it's a misguided emotional response stemming from what Krishna calls an ignorance of the real self. He uses this really striking analogy, comparing Arjuna's grief to someone trying to rescue only the outward dress, the clothes of a drowning man, while completely ignoring the man himself.
Wow. So he's saying Arjuna is focused on the superficial, the temporary appearance, and missing the real person, the essence.
Exactly. The flaw in Arjuna's logic, from Krishna's viewpoint, lies precisely in his attachment to the temporary material body and the relationships based solely on that body. Arjuna, being a Kshatriya, a warrior, has a specific dharma, a sacred duty.
Right, his role.
His duty in this context is to fight a just war, to protect citizens and uphold righteousness. His current behavior, completely overcome by emotion and attachment to the physical forms of his relatives, is seen as a deviation from his inherent nature and his responsibility. Krishna basically says, this isn't expected of you.
Okay.
And he explains that the Bhagavad Gita itself is being spoken specifically to dissipate this lamentation of the ignorant man by providing a clear, analytical study of the difference between the temporary material body and the eternal spirit soul. It's lesson one, the foundational teaching to reorient Arjuna's entire perspective.
Okay, so the Gita, right from the start, it's like a spiritual emergency intervention, delivering the most fundamental truth to counteract this material compassion. And that first absolutely crucial teaching is about the true nature of who we really are, the indestructible nature of the soul, the Atman.
Precisely. This is bedrock Vedic thought, Krishna emphasizes. For the soul there is never birth nor death, nor having once been does he ever cease to be. He is unborn, eternal, ever-existing, undying, and primeval. He is not slain when the body is slain.
That's huge. The soul just is.
It just is. It's described as a small atomic fragmental part of the Supreme Spirit, qualitatively one with the Supreme, like a spark from a fire. It's steady, or kutastha, which means it undergoes absolutely no changes like the body does. It's the constant, unchanging essence within us.
So it's not subject to any of the wear and tear, the aging, the decay, the physical vulnerabilities we experience daily. It's completely beyond all that. The source material also says the soul is immune to material elements. Can you unpack that a bit more? What does that really mean for our core identity?
Yes, that's a beautiful and profound description. Krishna explains, the soul can never be cut to pieces by any weapon, nor burned by fire, nor moistened by water, nor withered by the wind. Completely untouchable by material means. This highlights its eternal, immutable quality, totally distinct from the perishable material elements, earth, water, fire, air, ether, that make up our physical world and our bodies. Think of maybe the sun. The sun is pure light and heat, right? It's untouched by the effects it creates down here on earth, like rain or storms.
Right, that makes sense.
Similarly, the soul is of a spiritual nature, fundamentally unaffected by the material transformations that act upon the body. It exists in a different dimension of reality, you could say.
That comparison really clarifies it. It's truly a radical concept. And this contrasts so sharply with the body's journey, the transformations it goes through.
Indeed. The body undergoes these 6 distinct stages. Birth, just remaining for a while, growing, producing byproducts, then dwindling, and finally vanishing. Death. That's the material cycle.
The inevitable cycle.
But the soul remains absolutely changeless throughout all of this. And we instinctively feel this continuity, don't we? The text says, the so-called old man feels himself to be in the same spirit as in his childhood or youth.
Yeah, you do feel like the same you inside, even as everything else changes.
Exactly. The body undeniably changes, infant, child, adult, elderly, yet that sense of I within, our fundamental self-awareness, that remains constant. It's the body transforming, not the eternal spark of consciousness, the soul that animates it.
That makes perfect sense. It really aligns with our own subjective experience. We age, our bodies change, memories pile up, but we still feel like the same us deep down.
So what about birth and death then? If the soul doesn't die, what exactly is happening during what we perceive as life and death?
Well, birth and death, from this perspective, are merely caused by interaction with material nature. The physical body, as we discussed, it's a temporary construct of those 5 basic elements. When a soul takes on such a body, we call that birth.
When it sheds that body and the material elements return to their source, that's what we call death. It's essentially like a change of clothes, a transition. And importantly, a soul that is dependent on the Lord, meaning not fully liberated, has no control over the process of birth and death. Our entry and exit from these physical forms aren't really up to us. They're orchestrated by a higher power within the laws of nature and karma.
So we don't choose when or where we pop into existence or leave it.
Not in the way we usually think of choosing, no. And the Lord, as the ultimate protector, protects and controls all bodies that envelop an individual soul.
And when you say all bodies, you mean more than just the physical one we see, right? There's more to it.
Precisely. It's a more nuanced picture. The Lord protects not only this gross physical body that we perceive with our senses, but also our subtle body.
The subtle body.
Yes, which comprises our mind, intelligence, and ego. This subtle body is what carries our thoughts, our desires, our karmic imprints from one life to the next. It's the vehicle between gross bodies. And even more fundamentally, there's our intrinsic, eternal spiritual body, our pure, unique spiritual identity, completely distinct from all this material conditioning. So when the gross body perishes, the subtle body carries the soul to another gross body, while the intrinsic spiritual body remains eternally untouched.
Okay, so our bodies are basically temporary vehicles, like a suit of clothes, or maybe even like an avatar in some vast cosmic game.
That's an excellent analogy, yeah.
And the soul is the eternal player, the conscious entity wearing or controlling that avatar.
That captures it very well. And because the soul is eternal and immutable, and the body is merely a temporary changing garment or vehicle, grieving over the body's destruction is, from this higher transcendental perspective, unnecessary. Krishna tells Arjuna flat out, so it is not worth grieving over such a temporary body.
Right.
Arjuna's initial compassion, while it looked virtuous on the surface, was fundamentally misdirected. He was grieving the temporary dress of his relatives, rather than understanding the eternal, indestructible wearer, the soul within them.
Wow. That's a truly profound shift in perspective.
Mm,
If our true self is eternal and distinct from the perishable body and all its temporary relationships, then the very definition of suffering changes dramatically. It implies that the soul itself doesn't suffer in the way we normally think about it. Its nature is supposed to be eternal bliss and knowledge.
correct. Intrinsically, yes.
But Kay, if the soul doesn't suffer, why do we experience suffering so acutely in our embodied state? What causes the pain, the loss, the injustice we feel so intensely? That must lead us to the intricate dance of action and consequence, what the Gita calls karma.
Exactly. If we connect that foundational understanding of the eternal soul to the bigger picture, we see the entire cosmic manifestation as this realm of constant, dynamic activity. The Gita says the cosmic manifestation is full of different activities. All living entities are engaged in different activities. But importantly, this isn't just random chaos.
So there's an inherent order, a design behind all this universal activity. It's not just a series of cosmic accidents.
Absolutely not. According to the Gita, it asserts that nothing could be manifested without being controlled. Material nature, with all its incredible complexity, so from the movement of galaxies down to the growth of a single blade of grass, operates under the directions of the Supreme Lord.
Okay.
As Krishna states clearly in the Gita, Mayatiksina prakriti suyate sakarakaram, which basically means this entire material nature, with all its moving and non-moving beings, operates under his supervision, his direction.
Like the automobile analogy you mentioned earlier.
Precisely. Just as any sane person knows that a car doesn't run by itself, it needs a driver, we should understand that behind this cosmic manifestation, there is a controller, and that controller is the Supreme Lord.
So the universe isn't just some self-running, autonomous machine. It has a divine driver, an ultimate orchestrator. Okay, what about us then? The living entities, the individual souls. We often feel like we're driving our own lives, making our own choices, exerting our own will. How do we fit into this cosmic control system?
Well, we are described as parts and parcels of the Supreme Lord. This means we possess all the qualities of the Supreme Lord in minute quantity.
Like a tiny spark from the big fire.
Exactly. Just as a drop of ocean water has the same chemical composition as the vast ocean, we as individual souls possess qualities like consciousness, free will, intelligence, even a tendency to create, but in a very, very limited measure. We do have this tendency to lord it over material nature, to try and control our circumstances, our environment, even other living beings. That desire to control, to be independent, actually comes from our connection to Krishna, who's the ultimate controller.
Ah.
However, the crucial distinction is that we are not the supreme controller. We have agency, we have choice, but it always operates within the framework of a larger divine design, governed by natural laws. And this is precisely where the intricate law of karma comes in, establishing our individual responsibility within that framework.
Ah, karma. That's a term so many people throw around but maybe don't fully grasp its profound and almost scientific depth within the Gita. It often gets boiled down to a very simplistic what goes around comes around.
It does, and it's much more nuanced. The Gita explains that all living entities are subject to the reactions of their past good or bad activities. It's presented as an impartial, universal law of cause and effect. Crucially, the Lord is never partial to any living entity.
So God isn't playing favorites or arbitrarily punishing people.
Not according to this view, no. Rather, the living entity is responsible for his own acts, and the Lord merely provides the facilities through the agency of material nature for those reactions to manifest. So our experiences of suffering or happiness, our current circumstances, they aren't arbitrary. They are the consequence of our own choices, actions, and intentions, stretching back through this life and potentially previous ones.
Okay, that's a heavy concept, responsibility stretching back like that.
It is, but what's truly fascinating here, and actually deeply liberating, is the idea that anyone who is fully conversant with all the intricacies of this law of karma does not become affected by the results of his activities.
Wait, understanding the law frees you from its effects. How does that work?
It means that understanding, true knowledge of how karma operates, frees one from entanglement in its results. It's like knowing the rules of a complex game. You play more skillfully, you understand why things happen, and you aren't emotionally devastated or overly elated by the wins and losses because you see the bigger mechanism at play. You act, but without the binding attachment to the outcome.
That's powerful. Knowledge is liberation from karmic reactions. Not escaping consequences necessarily, but understanding them so deeply they no longer bind you emotionally or spiritually. Okay, but if we're all responsible for our actions and most of us intellectually know what's right and wrong, why do we sometimes do things that we know are bad for us or for others? Almost as if compelled, against our better judgment. Arjuna himself asks this very question. It's so relatable.
It is. He asks, why does one indulge in sinful activities even when not inclined to do so, as if one was forced to do so? Who prompts this behavior? He's searching for that strongest and most difficult emotion to conquer, that internal force that seems to sabotage us.
Yeah, what is that force?
And Krishna's answer is incredibly insightful and so relevant to our daily lives. He identifies two primary culprits: desire, which is often translated as lust, kama, and its close relative, anger.
Cause desire and anger.
Okay. He explains that desire finds a home in one's sense organs, mind, and intellect. It is through these elements that desire clouds one's judgment and leads one astray. So it's not some external force pushing us from outside. It's an internal enemy that takes root within our very being, using our own faculties, our senses, mind, intelligence against our better judgment.
Wow. So it's not some literal demon making us do bad things, but an internal process that, if we don't check it, can basically hijack our rational mind. And the Gita even maps out this descent, doesn't it? This sort of downward spiral of consciousness.
It does in a remarkably psychological and profound way.
Yeah.
Krishna describes this chain reaction. When one continually ponders on objects of the sense, meaning we dwell mentally on external attractions, things we want, it leads to attachment.
Okay, thinking leads to attachment.
From attachment arises desire, the longing to possess or enjoy. When that desire is inevitably thwarted, sometimes we don't get what we want. It leads to anger.
Right, frustration boils over.
This anger, Krishna warns, can drive him nearly mad and causes a loss of memory, specifically the memory of what's right and wrong, what's truly beneficial for us spiritually. This loss of judgment leads to disorderly, irrational behavior, ultimately culminating in an ignoble end, a spiritual downfall, more entanglement, and inevitably more suffering. So a huge chunk of our suffering, even for apparently good people, often stems directly from actions driven by these uncontrolled desires and the anger that erupts when they're frustrated. It's a clear roadmap to inner turmoil.
That makes so much sense psychologically. Beyond these personal actions and their karmic echoes, the Gita also talks about a grander cosmic order, right? Something operating on a universal scale. This cyclic order of the universe, known as yagna. It sounds like it underscores the importance of our duty and contribution within that larger system.
Yes, this concept of yagna, which is often just superficially translated as Vedic sacrifices, is presented as something far more profound than just ritual. It's introduced as crucial for the orderly functioning of the universe. It describes this profound cycle of interdependence involving absolutely everything: all living beings, the celestial controllers, deities or devas, inert matter itself, and ultimately, the Supreme Lord. The universe isn't just a collection of isolated parts. It's this vast, interconnected system of give and take.
Like a cosmic ecosystem.
Exactly, a spiritual economy, you could say. The cycle is explained kind of like this: rice, humans, Vedic prayers acknowledging the source, Lord's grace, prescribed duties, ritual sacrifices, actions performed in proper consciousness, offering to deities like Parjanya, controlling rain, rain rice.
Wow, that's intricate. It connects food, human action, spiritual practice, divine grace, natural forces, everything.
Everything is linked. It's not just about farming. It's showing how all actions performed with the right consciousness have cosmic resonance and maintain the balance.
Okay, so that sounds like an incredibly delicate and intricate balance. What happens if this cycle of yagna, this cosmic give and take, gets disrupted? What are the consequences if we ignore this interdependence?
The Gita is very direct about this. One who does not respect and follow this cycle of life is leading a wasteful life. Such people are interested only in pursuing sense pleasures, and they lead a sinful life. When humanity acts primarily out of selfish desire, ignoring the interconnectedness and disrupting the natural and spiritual balance, the consequences aren't just personal karma, they become global.
Ah,
And the text suggests we see the real-world perils of this disruption constantly. Things like global warming, excessive rains, floods, earthquakes, pandemics. It implies that even our collective suffering, our large-scale ecological and social crises, can be directly linked back to a fundamental disharmony with this cosmic order, a failure to understand and perform our duty within the larger yagna.
so whether it's an individual acting out of uncontrolled desire or a whole society acting in ways that disrupt this cosmic balance, our actions have profound consequences. And the Gita further distinguishes between ignorant action and learned action, which seems absolutely pivotal to understanding how we navigate this whole system of karma without getting constantly battered by it.
Precisely. Ignorant people, those lacking this deeper understanding, believe that they act independently. They just don't recognize the intricate network of cause and effect, the roles played by material nature, the influence of past karma, and the ultimate controller orchestrating things behind the scenes. They take all the credit for successes and blame everyone else or bad luck for failures, trapped in this superficial view of agency.
The ego trap.
Totally. In stark contrast, the learned ones, those with true knowledge, know that the Lord Almighty is independent and causes activity in individual souls based on their innate nature and past karma. They understand the crucial distinction in the attributes and activities between the Lord and ordinary souls. They see that every single act, whether simple or incredibly complex, involves five essential factors working together. First, the force, which is the body, the place of action, and then the agent, the individual soul or the ego claiming doership. Next, the various instruments, the senses. Fourth, the special effort, the endeavor itself. Fifth, the God, the supersoul within, sanctioning and facilitating the outcome based on karma.
Wow, 5 factors for every action.
Yes. Therefore, as the Gita states so powerfully, whoso for lack of knowledge seeth himself as the sole actor knoweth not at all and seeth not. True wisdom lies in understanding our role. We are actors, we make choices, we put in effort, but we are not the ultimate controllers of the results. We are more like instruments, acting within a larger divine orchestration.
That's a profound revelation. It completely reframes our understanding of personal responsibility and free will, doesn't it? So our suffering often arises from actions driven by uncontrolled desire, performed in ignorance of our true nature and this cosmic order, and ultimately out of alignment with the divine will or plan. It makes me wonder, if there are different ways of acting and understanding, are there also different qualities to our actions and maybe even to our very existence? That sounds like it brings us to the 3 modes of material nature.
Absolutely. This concept of the 3 modes of nature is fundamental to understanding why our experiences vary so widely, why one person finds joy in something another finds miserable, and why suffering takes so many different forms. Material nature, or prakriti, isn't just one uniform thing. It consists of 3 modes: goodness, sattva, passion, rajas, and ignorance, tamas.
Sattva, rajas, tamas, goodness, passion, ignorance.
Right. And these qualities are described like interwoven threads that make up the fabric of the material world. They tightly bind individual souls when we come into contact with material nature through the body. They condition our thoughts, our actions, our perceptions, everything.
So these aren't just like personality types or fleeting moods. They're fundamental, pervasive forces that literally bind us, tie us to this material world. How do we even start to grasp influences that powerful?
Exactly. They are intrinsic attributes of the material world itself, and by extension, they deeply influence our embodied experience. And what's fascinating here is the mention of divine governance behind them. Goddess Mahalakshmi, in her 3 forms of Sri, Bhu, and Durga, governs the 3 qualities. These modes are constantly influencing us, shaping our experiences, our motivations, our desires, even our destinies over lifetimes. They create the rich, diverse, and often very contradictory tapestry of human experience. So let's break down each mode, because understanding them helps us see not just why bad things happen, but how even what we perceive as pure goodness can, paradoxically, be a subtle binding force keeping us here.
Right. I think that's a crucial point. We usually assume goodness is purely liberating, purely positive, but you're saying even that can have a kind of subtle tether to the material world. Let's start there, with goodness.
Indeed. Let's start with goodness, Sata. Its characteristics usually include increased knowledge, a sense of happiness, clarity, contentment, and a relative freedom from overtly sinful reactions or base desires. When one is predominantly in sattva, they often feel more clarity, more purpose, more inner peace. The Gita says one becomes wiser than those otherwise conditioned and not so much affected by material miseries as those primarily in the other modes.
Sounds pretty good so far. Where's the catch? Where's the binding?
The binding aspect is subtle, but it's powerful. The text explains, when a living entity is situated in the mode of goodness, he becomes conditioned to feel that he is advanced in knowledge and is better than others. In this way, he becomes conditioned. It binds the sinless soul to happiness and truth, meaning the attachment to that feeling of happiness, the pride in that knowledge, the sense of being morally superior, that becomes the chain.
Ah, the attachment to the goodness.
Precisely. Imagine, say, a very ethical doctor or a dedicated teacher who prides themselves on their tireless service and their intellectual prowess. Their actions are undoubtedly good. But if their underlying motivation includes a strong desire for recognition or a subtle belief that they're morally superior to their less devoted colleagues, that attachment to their own goodness can subtly breed anxiety. What if I fail? Ego and disappointment when their efforts aren't sufficiently appreciated. The goodness, when mixed with ego and attachment, becomes this subtle golden chain. The Gita says those predominantly in goodness gradually go upward to the higher planets in the next life.
Which sounds nice.
But it's still a material destination within the cycle of birth and death, not ultimate liberation.
Wow, that's a fascinating twist. It means even our noblest impulses can subtly keep us tied here if there's an underlying ego or attachment to the good feeling or the good outcome.
Okay, what about passion, Rajas? This sounds like it would have much more obvious bindings.
Passion, Rajas, is indeed far more overt, more visibly agitating in its binding nature. It is characterized by greed, hankering, uncontrollable desire, and intense endeavor. This is the mode of relentless activity, of ambition, of constantly wanting more, achieving more, acquiring more. It breeds impulse and propensity, always pushing one towards action, usually for material gain or sense gratification.
The stereotypical go-getter.
Very much so. A Radha Saudiyar is impassioned, greedy, and attached to the fruits of labor. This mode directly binds the embodied soul by tie of works. The Gita warns that any activity undertaken primarily for material happiness or personal gratification is ultimately bound to be defeated in terms of providing lasting satisfaction, and almost inevitably leads to misery in the long run. How so? Why does it lead to misery?
Because the desires are endless, the competition is fierce, the anxiety is constant. The text gives the example. Quote, so much human misery has to be undergone before a big skyscraper can be built. The relentless work hours, the stress, the competition, perhaps the ethical compromises made along the way. All this intense effort for a temporary structure. Those predominantly in passion live on the earthly planets, life after life, or even face the chance of becoming mad in the next life because their desires remain fundamentally unfulfilled, driving them to ceaseless, often frustrating activity. It's the mode of endless striving, endless wanting, and the inherent anxiety and disappointment that comes with it.
That vividly illustrates how even striving for worldly success, which our society often frames as a virtue, can be a profound source of suffering and keep us tangled up. Okay, and then there's the third one, ignorance, Tomas. This sounds like the most challenging mode to be caught in.
Indeed, ignorance, Thomas, is described as the darkest and most debilitating of the three modes. Its characteristics are things like darkness, inactivity, madness, illusion, inertia, stupor, sloth, and drowsiness. A person heavily influenced by tamas cannot understand a thing as it is. They often operate under delusion, sometimes even look upon wrong as right and see all things contrariwise of truth.
So a complete lack of clarity.
A profound lack. This mode deeply binds souls to stupor, sloth, and drowsiness. It leads not only to present misery, but afterwards the soul will go on toward animal life, meaning a lower birth in the next life due to the degraded consciousness. For instance, the Gita points out that people who are madly accumulating money and working very hard all day and night, not caring for the eternal spirit, despite their apparent frantic activity, can actually be driven by tamas because their focus is entirely materialistic and spiritually inert.
So activity itself isn't the key, it's the consciousness behind it.
Exactly. Such people are described as very lazy when it comes to any kind of spiritual understanding or practice, prioritizing sleep, intoxication, or just basic sense gratification over any form of higher consciousness. And the Gita is particularly strong in calling acts like unnecessary animal killing the grossest kind of ignorance, especially mentioning cow slaughter, because it demonstrates a complete lack of understanding or empathy for the soul residing within all living beings. Those deeply immersed in this mode, it says, go down to the hellish worlds, or lower forms of life. It's a state of profound self-destruction, delusion, and insensitivity.
Okay, so the mode of ignorance clearly leads to significant suffering, both for the individual and usually for others around them, and has serious consequences for future lives. It's like a spiritual blindness that just prevents any real progress or understanding. And you mentioned these three modes aren't static states, right? They're constantly interacting, fighting for dominance.
It's exactly right. Krishna explains this dynamic interplay very clearly. Sometimes the mode of passion becomes prominent, defeating the mode of goodness and ignorance. Sometimes the mode of goodness defeats passion and ignorance, and at other times the mode of ignorance defeats goodness and passion. In this way, there is always competition for supremacy.
Like internal weather patterns changing all the time.
That's a good way to put it. This constant competition explains the fluctuating nature of our experiences, our moods, our energy levels, our motivations, even our moral clarity or lack thereof. One moment we might feel inspired, clear-headed, generous, sattva, the next driven by some insatiable urge or ambition, rajas, and then perhaps suddenly sink into apathy, confusion, or laziness, tamas. We are constantly under the sway of these competing forces as long as we're identifying with the material body and mind.
Okay, so if we're always subject to this internal push and pull, this constant competition between goodness, passion, and ignorance, how on earth do we escape it? How do we transcend these modes and achieve that ultimate, unshakable freedom from their binding influence? Is there a way to actually break these chains, even the subtle golden chains of goodness?
The key, Krishna reveals, is twofold: deep understanding, coupled with proper guidance. One can transcend all the activities of the modes of material nature simply by understanding them properly, by learning from the proper souls. This knowledge, especially when assimilated from a bona fide spiritual teacher who has transcended the modes themselves, helps one to see their real position as the eternal soul, completely distinct from the temporary body and its conditioning by these modes. It's about fundamentally shifting your identity, your sense of self, from the changing material self to the unchanging spiritual self.
It's an identity shift, not just behavioral change. And what are the symptoms? What does such a transcendental person, someone truly free from this binding influence of the modes, actually look like or act like? How would we recognize such a state, maybe even in ourselves, or strive for it?
Krishna gives a very detailed and beautiful description of this liberated person. He says such a person is one who does not hate illumination, goodness, attachment, passion, and delusion and ignorance when they are present, nor longs for them when they disappear, meaning they don't get agitated when these influences arise, nor do they crave them when they subside. They are seated like one unconcerned in all situations, who remains firm, knowing that the modes alone are active, meaning they see these qualities acting through the body and mind, but don't identify with them.
They're like an observer of their own mind-body machine.
Exactly. Such a person regards alike pleasure and pain, and looks on a lump of earth, a stone, and a piece of gold with an equal eye. They are wise and holds praise and blame to be the same, who is unchanged in honor and dishonor, who treats friend and foe alike, who has abandoned all fruitive undertakings, meaning all actions driven by personal desire for results. Such a man, Krishna concludes, is said to have transcended the modes of nature. They are not agitated or controlled by the qualities of nature. They simply observe them at play, understanding that these are transient material phenomena, totally separate from their true, eternal self. They remain internally peaceful and centered, regardless of whatever drama the external world or their own mind throws at them.
That's a truly profound state of equanimity, an ultimate inner peace that seems completely impervious to the endless ups and downs of life. So, okay, we've really unpacked why suffering occurs. It's tied to the temporary body, our past actions, karma, and the binding nature of these material qualities, even goodness itself. But the Gita, thankfully, doesn't just leave us there in despair. It offers a clear, actionable path towards that peace, a way to transcend suffering, even for good people like Arjuna, who are caught in a terrible situation, and attain that unshakable state. All right, so after hearing all this, especially the, really intricate details about action, non-action, renouncing the fruits of labor, the modes of nature, Arjuna gets a bit confused, which seems totally understandable. It's a very relatable moment, trying to apply this profound philosophy to a very real, very messy world dilemma. He asks Krishna, basically, okay, wait, first you ask me to renounce work, and then you recommend work with devotion. Can you please just tell me definitely which of these two paths is actually more beneficial? He wants clarity, a straight answer for the path forward.
It's a great question, reflecting the practical challenge. And Krishna clarifies this beautifully by distinguishing between two related but distinct concepts: sannyasa and tyaga.
Okay, sannyasa and tyaga.
Sannyasa, in its truest, deepest sense, is the foregoing of all acts which spring out of desire. It's not necessarily about giving up external activity altogether, but crucially, giving up the desire-driven motivation behind those actions.
Ah, the internal motivation again.
Exactly. Tyaga, on the other hand, is defined specifically as renouncing all attachment to the fruit, the results, of one's actions. So Krishna emphasizes that the true yogi or ascetic is not someone who simply stops performing rituals or building fires or whatever external signs of renunciation people adopt. The true yogi is one who performs prescribed duties without expectations of personal reward or gain.
So you can be fully active but still be a true renunciate internally.
Absolutely. Renunciation in goodness, therefore, isn't about inaction. It's about performing one's prescribed duty only because it ought to be done, as an offering, and completely renouncing all attachment to the fruit. It's a complete shift in internal motivation and consciousness, not necessarily an external cessation of activity.
Okay, so it's not about stopping action, but fundamentally changing our relationship to the action and its results. It's a total shift in motivation, moving from what's in it for me, or ego-driven outcomes, to selfless duty performed simply because it's right, maybe as an offering. That sounds like a really radical redefinition of what it means to be active in the world.
It is radical.
Yeah.
And the benefit of this internal transformation is profound. Krishna assures Arjuna, the one who performs prescribed duties without expectations as an offering to the Lord himself, knowing that the Lord is the cause of all activities, will not be entangled by actions just as water does not cling to a lotus leaf.
Ah, the lotus leaf analogy. I like that.
Yeah. It's a key image. The lotus leaf lives right there in the water, but it remains completely untouched, unstained, unmoistened by the water around it. Similarly, by performing our duties without personal attachment or expectation, offering the results to the divine, one remains spiritually untouched and unbound by karmic reactions, even while being fully engaged in the activities of the world. It's a path to finding freedom within activity, not necessarily from activity.
That's a beautiful image of freedom, to be fully engaged, doing what needs to be done, yet remain internally unbound. Okay, so what does this perfect yogin, as the text calls them, or a truly liberated person, actually look like in practice? Someone who is truly free from suffering and has mastered this art of detached, dedicated action. What are their characteristics?
Well, such a person possesses profound self-mastery, a complete command over their internal world, their mind, their senses. They're not swayed or agitated by sense objects or external stimuli constantly pulling at them. Krishna says, that man alone is wise who keeps the mastery of himself. If one ponders on objects of the sense, there springs. Well, the whole chain reaction we discussed earlier. The wise person interrupts that at the source.
They control the input.
They control the input and the mind's reaction to it. For them, what work he does is work of sacrifice, which passes purely into ash and smoke consumed upon the altar. All's then God. This beautiful verse signifies working without any trace of ego or personal expectation, seeing every action as a sacred offering to the divine, where the outcome is accepted as grace, not demanded for personal gratification. Every act, mundane or significant, becomes sacred.
And what about their internal state? What kind of mental tranquility do they achieve amidst all the chaos and challenges life inevitably throws our way? How do they navigate grief, loss, or even personal triumphs and successes?
They reach a state of inner equilibrium, where they cannot be stirred or shook by any gravest grief. This state is called peace, described poetically as that happy severance yoga. Call that man the perfect yogin. Achieving this involves consciously shaking off all longings bred by dreams of fame and gain, and metaphorically shutting the doorways of the senses closed with watchful ward.
Guarding the mind.
Exactly. Such a person exhibits complete equanimity. They are not perturbed by happiness or sadness, gain or loss, etc. They won't harbor jealousy over someone else's success, and they remain content with whatever comes their way, seeing it as arranged by the Lord. It's like building an inner fortress of peace, completely impervious to the fluctuating fortunes and opinions of the external world. They don't just feel peaceful sometimes, their very being is rooted in peace, because their identity is anchored in the eternal, not the transient waves of material experience.
It sounds like an ultimate inner peace, truly resilient. For many listening, though, that kind of equanimity might sound almost superhuman, maybe impossible to achieve in a world full of very real suffering, deadlines, family responsibilities, just life. Is this state an ideal only for monks or renunciates living in caves? Or can someone deeply engaged in family life, career, society actually pursue this perfect yogin state? And how does one really achieve this level of inner mastery? Is there a highest, most direct path mentioned?
That's a crucial question, and the Gita offers a very encouraging and beautiful answer. It's absolutely not just for renunciates in the traditional sense. The Gita teaches very clearly that one can remain fully engaged in the world, fulfilling responsibilities in family, career, and society, and still achieve this state by internalizing these principles of detachment and dedication. And yes, Krishna does reveal what he calls the highest, most direct path, the supremacy of
Yeah.
devotion, or bhakti yoga.
Bhakti yoga.
Yes. He states unequivocally towards the end, to fully surrender unto Krishna is the highest perfection. This instruction is described as the most confidential instruction and is the essence of the 18th chapter, the final chapter. The call to devotion is clear, surprisingly simple, yet incredibly profound. Focus your mind exclusively on me, Krishna. Be devoted only to me. Worship only me. Surrender to me through prostration. Thus, by depending exclusively on me, you will reach my abode. This core instruction, Manmanavhava Madbhakta, is essentially about transforming one's entire consciousness through developing love for and connection to the divine. It's presented as a path accessible to everyone, regardless of their external circumstances or social position.
And the benefits of this pure devotion seem incredibly profound, extending far beyond just achieving internal peace. It sounds like it offers liberation from the entire cycle of suffering itself.
The promised benefits are indeed ultimate. For the pure devotee, Krishna makes this extraordinary promise. For him, I am the swift deliverer from the ocean of birth and death.
Swift deliver, not a slow climb.
Not a slow climb, but a rapid rescue by divine grace. He also says such a steadily devoted soul attains unadulterated peace because he offers the result of all activities to me. Furthermore, there's this promise of an eternal reciprocal relationship. For one who sees me everywhere and sees everything in me, I am never lost, nor is he ever lost to me. This signifies an unbreakable loving connection with the divine, the very source of all peace and existence. And crucially, regarding liberation, one who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities does not, upon leaving the body, take his birth again in this material world, but attains my eternal abode.
Wow.
This is the ultimate liberation from suffering, the complete cessation of the cycle of birth and death in the material realm. It's the ultimate answer to the question of why good people suffer, because it removes one entirely from the realm where such suffering is possible.
It's a complete transformation, then, of one's relationship with the divine, not just intellectually understanding concepts, but cultivating a deep, loving connection with every fiber of one's being. And this devotion also seems deeply connected to understanding Krishna's all-pervasive presence and his ultimate role as the controller and maintainer of the entire universe.
Yes, absolutely. Krishna repeatedly asserts his supreme position and his intimate involvement in every aspect of existence. He says, I am the source of all spiritual and material worlds. Everything emanates from me. He's the ultimate origin, the foundational reality behind everything. He is also the knower of all, stating unequivocally, O Arjuna, as the supreme personality of Godhead, I know everything that has happened in the past, all that is happening in the present, and all things that are yet to come. Nothing is hidden from his awareness.
Past, present, future. He knows it all.
All of it. And most intimately, he is residing in all hearts as the Supersoul, the Paramatma. From within, he acts as the witness, overseer, permitter, and supreme enjoyer. He explains this profound truth in a famous verse. Isvara sarvabhutanam aradedi zayunati stati brahmayan sarvabhutani yantarutani mayaya, which translates roughly as, the omnipotent Lord, residing in the hearts of all living beings, O Arjuna, propels them to perform various activities through his own free will, acting through material nature, as if they were seated on a machine made of material energy. He is the ultimate facilitator of our actions, respecting our minute free will while ensuring the cosmic order unfolds according to the laws he has set.
That's incredible. He's right there, inside everyone. And this supreme power, this all-encompassing, all-knowing presence was also visually demonstrated to Arjuna in a truly, well, awe-inspiring, maybe even terrifying way, wasn't it, with the vision of the universal form.
Briefly, yes, and that was perhaps the most overwhelming and definitive moment for Arjuna personally. Krishna granted him divine vision to behold his Vishwarupa Darshana, the universal form. In this colossal, multifaceted, effulgent vision, Krishna revealed himself as the controller of time and space, mighty enough to destroy all the worlds. Arjuna witnessed past, present, and future converging in this single, terrifying yet ultimately reassuring form. He saw vividly that Krishna had, in a sense, already killed all the leaders of the Kauravara army on the battlefield, even before the physical battle truly began.
Wow.
It demonstrated his absolute power over time, his role in cosmic dissolution when necessary, and the inevitable reestablishment of Dharma, righteousness. It was an overwhelming, almost unbearable vision for Arjuna, but it's solidified beyond any doubt Krishna's ultimate authority, and Arjuna's own role is simply an instrument in the unfolding divine plan.
So, after imparting all this profound knowledge, explaining the nature of the soul, karma, the modes, devotion, and after revealing this cosmic scale of suffering, duty, and liberation, Krishna tells Arjuna something interesting. He says, I have imparted to you the most confidential of all confidential knowledge. Contemplate on this completely and do as you wish. On the surface, that sounds like he's just giving Arjuna a choice, like, take it or leave it.
It sounds like that, but it's generally understood as more of a rhetorical challenge, really. It's intended to empower Arjuna to make an informed, conscious decision based on the profound truth he's just received directly from the source. It's not a casual invitation to disregard the teachings, but rather a call to fully internalize them and act from that place of understanding.
Ah.
And Arjuna's response confirms his transformation. He ultimately declares, my illusion is now gone. I have regained my memory through your mercy, O infallible one. I am now firm and free from doubt and am prepared to act according to your instructions. This aligns perfectly with the core philosophical understanding presented, that the Lord, the individual souls, and inert matter are fundamentally distinct realities. The Lord is superior to and different from all other entities, and individual souls, while possessing consciousness and minute free will, are eternally dependent on the Lord. They do not have independent doership. This distinction is key because it means suffering is seen as a characteristic of conditioned individual souls who have forgotten their true nature and relationship with the Supreme, not an inherent quality of the Supreme Lord or the liberated unconditioned soul.
Okay, so to bring it all back around to our original driving question, the suffering of good people like Arjuna is ultimately an experience tied inextricably to the temporary body, to actions performed in ignorance or under the influence of the modes, and to our conditioned existence within this material world, separate from our original spiritual consciousness. The path to lasting peace, then, lies not in lamenting the temporary losses or injustices, but in aligning our actions and consciousness with this eternal truth, understanding our real spiritual identity, and ultimately embracing that path of devotion. Hashtag tag tag outro. Wow. Our deep dive today, really guided by the timeless, profound wisdom of the Bhagavad Gita, has truly tried to unpack that intricate, deeply human question of why good people suffer. We've learned that suffering, even for the seemingly virtuous, the genuinely compassionate like Arjuna, isn't rooted in some arbitrary divine injustice, but rather in a fundamental misunderstanding of our true nature.
Mm-hmm. It stems from identifying with the temporary nature of the physical body, from the inescapable laws of karma that govern our actions and their reactions across lifetimes, and from the binding influence of material nature's three modes where, as we discussed, even goodness itself can become a subtle chain if it leads to attachment or pride.
Right. And the Gita offers this profound, truly transformative shift in perspective. True liberation from suffering isn't really about avoiding difficulty or withdrawing from the world into inaction. It's about understanding one's eternal spiritual identity, completely separate from the material body.
It's about performing our prescribed duties, whatever they may be, without attachment to the outcomes, cultivating genuine divine knowledge, and ultimately embracing that path of unwavering devotion and complete surrender to the Supreme Lord. It's really about transforming our entire relationship with our actions, our experiences, and the divine itself. That allows us to remain internally untouched by sorrow, even while navigating the inevitable challenges of life.
So, thinking about this, if suffering is, in fact, an inevitable part of this conditioned existence, a consequence of our own actions, maybe even actions performed with good intent and our attachment to temporary things, what does it truly mean to be good in this more enlightened context?
That's the question, isn't it?
Does it mean performing our duty with a deep, selfless compassion directed towards the eternal soul within everyone, rather than just sorrow for the temporary body that suffers? Could embracing this ancient wisdom transform not just how you experience suffering, but maybe even how you define virtue and purpose itself in your own life? What stands out to you from today's discussion? It's definitely something to contemplate.
That's all for today. Thanks for watching. Drop your book or topic suggestions and any questions in the comments. Like, subscribe, and we'll see you soon.